press it, and then they hang it up to dry. After it dries, then they cut it into the slips that they're going to hand out. That was the process. So when the procession moves past the tavern, you'll see lights on inside the tavern, and you'll see soldiers out there that'll look like clotheslines on the front porch of the tavern. They'll just be hanging these big wet sheets of paper of parole passes. The overarching theme here is going home. Hannah's going home, soldiers are going home, everybody's going home. I neglected to mention that, but the 11th, the parole passes would still continue to be printed. It was done through the night. Also on the 11th, Confederate artillery is formally surrendered, and we will mark that with the ceremony. But otherwise, lots of programs all day long. And so maybe I'll pick this spot to tell you that all 5 days on the east and west ends of the village, there's a space designated for what we call ranger programs, for lack of a better term. But what those are, and you'll see a long list of programs, not what you've got in your hand now. This is a very detailed hour-by-hour program. Just to give you an example, the 2 locations are called the Triangle, which is a natural triangle on the stage road down by the Pierce House and the Jones Law Office, for those that know that area. The other one is called Tibbs Lane. That's an intersection of the stage road west of the McLean House. It's a nice big open area where 2 roads meet. There'll be 15 benches set up at each location for those of our visitors that would benefit the most from sitting during the programs. There'll be a riser that's 20 inches tall so that you can see somebody like me. If there's 200-300 people out there, the speaker will be on a riser, and it will be amplified. And so these programs go on almost every hour. And so when you're looking at the schedule, you'll see things like the Appomattox campaign at 10 o'clock at the Triangle, the surrender meeting at 10 o'clock at Tibbs Lane, a program about the stacking of arms at the Triangle, a program about Lee after the war, or Grant after the war, or the United States Colored Troops at Appomattox, or the village, the history of the village. All kinds of programs that go on at these 2 locations all the time. That's just ongoing. And a lot of them are repeated. So are the stacking of arms. We'll get to that. A lot of these programs are repeated, so if you don't get one of them, you can get it again later. And a lot of times there's 2 going on at once. So if you like both of them, go to one, and the other one will be offered again another time. Maybe same place, maybe the other place. So that's just ongoing. So there'll be a lot of that on the 11th. But remember, the 11th, Saturday, is the big day for the reenactment out at the industrial park. So it was kind of worked out nicely for us, because we're not trying to compete. We're not trying to have big events at 2 different places at once. So those that want to do the reenactment on Saturday, they're not going to miss a huge commemorative program in the park on Saturday. They could do that and then come back to the park on Sunday even. And for the sake of time, I want to get to the 12th, because there's a lot to talk about on the 12th. The 12th is another big significant historical day, because that's the day that the Confederate infantry laid down its arms. And that's the famous stacking of arms ceremony. Fact is, 2/3 of Lee's army was infantry at this point. So the cavalry and artillery surrenders are relatively small, and for a lot of people, forgotten. People don't talk about the 3-day event of laying down the arms. Most people focus on the 3rd day, which is April the 12th. Poetically, it's 4 years to the day of the firing on Fort Sumter. But that's the day that about 22,000 Confederate infantry come in and stack arms on the stage road. As the gentleman up here said earlier, we noticed in 1990, which was the 125th, we had one large stacking of arms event. It looked great. There was a huge involvement, lots of reenactors. It was a great photo opportunity. However, when it ended, everybody wanted to leave at the same time. The shuttle system was completely overwhelmed. A lot of people walked back to Appomattox to where their cars were. We really would like to try to avoid that. We know that the stacking of arms is a big deal for a lot of people. It's a very powerful ceremony. It was a ceremony when it was done, and it's a ceremony when we reenact it. It's one of the few times in a national park you'll see a historic event containing soldiers actually reenacted where it happened. Because it's not a battle. We can do this, and we do. We're actually going to have a stacking of arms on Friday at 3 o'clock, Saturday at 3 o'clock, but then on Sunday, we're going to have 4 of them. That's the historic day, Sunday, April the 12th. But we're trying to spread it out. If you can't be here on Sunday, seeing a stacking of arms at Appomattox is a very special thing. If you're only here on Friday or Saturday, you can still do it. But for Sunday, there'll be a stacking at 9, 11, and 1 Those 3 stackings will involve the reenactors that are in the park. And that's really one of the big reasons why they're there, is to show you the stacking of arms, and multiple times. And I should say, this is actually historically how it was done. The stacking wasn't one stacking. The Confederates came in by division for about 6.5 hours. And then they left, and another one came in, and then left. That's more like we're going to be doing it this time. 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And then at 3 o'clock, something really big is going to happen. That's the 4th stacking of arms, and this one is an open invitation stacking. This is in response to an overwhelming request from people, reenactors, all over the country. We knew this would happen, and we certainly want to try to accommodate people's desire to connect on a personal level to the story at Appomattox. Your great-great-grandfather may have been at Appomattox, may have served in the war somewhere else. Maybe you just care, and you want to stand on the road during the stacking of arms. You can. Now, there's going to be a lot of people doing it, to be sure. If anybody was at Gettysburg on day 3, back in July of 13, Pickett's Charge, people who wanted to participate in that were allowed to do so. You show up. If you want to be Confederate, if you want to be Union, if you don't care, you just want to be a part of it, they can instruct you where to go to do whatever it is you wanted to do. You had to get there early to get into place, but when the time was right, you could walk across that field, or you could stand on the ridge and watch them come to you. Either way, you were there. And that seems to be a really important part of these commemorations. For Appomattox, it seemed that the best way to do that was the stacking of arms. So, that afternoon at 3 o'clock, anybody that wants to stand on that road, or if they want to go down toward the river and form up as part of a Confederate division to march in, either way, you can do it. And we fully expect this to stretch all the way through the village. It's going to be huge, no doubt, especially if the weather's good, which it will be. So it's going to be big. It's going to be big. But I think for many, many people, this will be a very powerful moment in the Appomattox commemoration. So you may get people asking about that. We get calls and emails every day from reenactors all over the country saying, can I come to Appomattox and be a reenactor? Well, not for the whole 5 days. We just have limited space. But Sunday the 12th, 3 o'clock, that's the time. Get there early, get staged, and I think it'll be a very memorable thing that afternoon, the 12th. Okay, after that, the event's going to close on Sunday afternoon, and people are going to...
Contact information on it, and on the back, you can write down the jobs you want to do.
Yeah.
Everything.
We'll get into that.
All right, raise your hand if you do not have a piece of paper. Raise your hand if you don't have a pencil. I brought pencils as well. All right, Ernie's going to hand out paper.
Well, the pencils they can do.
If you still need a pencil, just keep your hand up and Elise will get a pencil to you.
Where do we send this?
Just put it right on the table on your way out or mail it into the car. Right. Or give it to me as well.
Okay. Anybody else need one of these?
So what we're going to do now is go through and describe to you all of the different volunteer opportunities, what we're looking for, what kind of commitment, what the job entails, so that you can make an informed decision of what you want to do when you're here between the 8th and the 12th.
Give me a second. All right, how far back to the job sheets? Not the VIP ones where you actually, original ones that you filled out, the actual job ones. How far back did these get?
We did not get one.
Yeah, we just not have something. All right.
Okay.
All right, so you got the other one that has the colored logo on the front, right? All right, what we ask you to do on that one.
We understand, but the problem is it's very difficult to follow along if you can't see the list. So is there any chance we could just distribute a couple of those to share amongst the rows? So
Sure, if you want to swap them out.
That would be great.
All right, swap them out so that every row has at least one of these.
Man, I'm gonna run out of space.